Two young veterans with battle scars walked into a luxury car dealership, only to be mocked for their appearance. What those arrogant salesmen didn't know. The next day, their father, a four-star general with medals across his chest, would arrive to teach them respect. Part 1. Setting the scene in initial conflict. 350 words. The gleaming glass facade of Prestige Motors reflected the morning sun like a polished metal. Inside, salespeople in tailored suits circulated among vehicles that cost more than most homes, their voices hushed as if in a cathedral of wealth. Outside, two brothers approached on modest bicycles, an unusual sight in this neighborhood, where even the gardeners drove luxury SUVs. The older brother, Marine Sergeant James Wilson, 26, dismounted slowly, his movements deliberate, his right leg dragged slightly, a permanent reminder of an IED explosion in Afghanistan that had sent shrapnel tearing through his calf muscle. His brother Michael, 24, a former Army medic who had served in the same region, waited patiently beside him. They wore simple clothes, faded jeans, plain t-shirts with small military insignias, and well-worn sneakers. Nothing designer, nothing flashy, but clean and pressed with military precision. James adjusted his service cap slightly, covering the scar that ran along his temple. "You sure about this?" Michael asked. "I'm in the showroom." James nodded. "Tom needs a vehicle with those specific modifications. If anyone would know about luxury cars with adaptive equipment, it'd be these guys." They parked their bikes and walked through the glass doors, which parted with a soft whoosh. Their eyes widened slightly at the automotive perfection before them. Sleek curves, gleaming chrome, the subtle scent of leather and polish. Moving quietly through the showroom, they approached a midnight blue sports car, admiring its lines and engineering. James was examining the door configuration when a voice cut through the air. "Can I help you?" The salesman, Bradley, approached with a practiced smile that vanished as he assessed them. His gaze lingered on James's limp, then flickered to their modest clothing. "We're interested in this model," James said. "Does it have options for adaptive driving equipment?" Bradley's eyebrows rose. "This vehicle starts at $900,000. He enunciated each syllable as if speaking to children. "Perhaps something more accessible would suit your needs?" Nearby, other salesmen snickered. A wealthy couple at a neighboring desk exchanged knowing glances. James straightened his back, military posture, even with his injury. "Thank you for your time," he said quietly. The brothers turned to leave, their dignity intact but spirits dimmed, as whispers and chuckles followed them to the door. "Wait!" A voice called from behind them as they reached their bicycles. They turned to see a woman in her 30s, wearing a simple but elegant blazer, hurrying toward them. Her name badge read, Emily Torres, sales consultant. "I'm sorry about that," she said, her voice sincere. "Would you like to come back inside? I'd be happy to show you the vehicle properly." The brothers exchanged glances. Michael nodded slightly. Back at the midnight blue sports car, Emily's approach was entirely different. "So you mentioned adaptive equipment?" she asked, making eye contact with James rather than staring at his leg. "Yes, ma'am," James replied. "I have a friend, a fellow Marine, lost both legs in Fallujah. He's always loved performance cars, and his rehabilitation is going well. Some of us from the unit thought—" He paused. "We wanted to research options." Emily nodded with understanding. "This model can actually be customized with hand controls and modified pedals." She began explaining the engineering specifics, the customization process, and even the history of the company's work with disabled drivers. Unlike Bradley, she spoke to them as people who deserved respect. She handed them detailed brochures and even offered them a chance to sit in the vehicle. "Take my card," she said as they finished. "If you have any questions, call me directly." As they left, Bradley leaned toward another salesman. "Why waste time on obvious tire kickers?" he muttered. Emily overheard, but remained professional. Something about these brothers reminded her of her own brother who had served. She recognized a quiet dignity that came not from wealth, but from having faced situations far more challenging than an uncomfortable social interaction. The Wilson family estate sat on a secluded stretch of coastline, its architecture a blend of modern luxury and traditional military discipline. Unlike the ostentatious mansions nearby, it was elegant but understated. Much like the man who owned it, James and Michael entered through the heavy oak front door, their footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Military memorabilia decorated the walls, not in gaudy display, but with respectful precision. Historic maps, a shadow box of medals, and photographs of troops in distant landscapes created a gallery of service that spanned generations. Dad in his study? James asked the household manager, who greeted them. Yes, sir. He returned from the Pentagon an hour ago. They found their father in his wood-paneled study, still in his service uniform minus the jacket, for stars glinted from each shoulder of his white shirt. General Robert Wilson wasn't just any military leader. He was a legendary strategist whose combat innovations had saved countless American lives. Boys, he said warmly, setting aside a stack of reports. Despite commanding thousands of troops, his family always received his full attention. How was your reconnaissance mission? It was his light-hearted way of referring to their car research for their injured friend. James hesitated. Michael studied the floor. The general's expression shifted. 35 years of military service had taught him to read situations quickly. What happened? He asked, his voice level. James described the dealership incident with the precision of a mission report. Factual, unemotional, thorough. He mentioned Bradley's condescension, the laughter, and Emily's kindness afterward. General Wilson listened without interruption, his face impassive except for a slight tightening around his eyes. When James finished, the general stood and walked to the window overlooking the ocean. Did they know who you were? He asked finally. No, sir, Michael replied. We never mentioned our name. Good. The general nodded. He turned to face his sons, his expression thoughtful. In the military, we judge people by their character, their actions under pressure, their integrity. In many civilian sectors, people are judged by appearances, by wealth indicators. He crossed to a cabinet and removed a frame containing a tattered piece of uniform. Your grandfather wore this at Normandy. He was a private then, covered in mud, indistinguishable from thousands of others. Yet he saved his entire platoon. He replaced the frame carefully. Worth isn't determined by appearance. Those who judge that way reveal more about themselves than about those they judge. Are you going to do something, Dad? Michael asked. The general's expression remained measured. I always have a response strategy, son. Always. He checked his watch. Now, dinner's in 30 minutes. I suggest you both get cleaned up. The brothers left, knowing their father well enough to recognize that something significant was now in motion. After his sons retired for the evening, General Wilson sat at his desk, the house quiet around him. He opened a secure line on his government phone. Major Reynolds, he said when the call connected. I need arrangements for tomorrow morning. Yes, General. What kind of support do you require? My official vehicle with military escort. Full dress uniform for myself and the escort team. Have them prepared at 0800 hours. May I ask the nature of the mission, sir? The general paused, looking at a photograph of his sons in uniform. James standing proudly at his Marine graduation, Michael receiving his Army medic certification. Both had served with distinction. Both had faced enemy fire without flinching. It's not a mission, Reynolds. It's a lesson in respect. After ending the call, he opened his laptop and searched for Prestige Motors ownership structure. Within minutes, he had the dealership's corporate hierarchy mapped out. Another search revealed the regional director's military background, a former Navy officer. The general smiled slightly. Sometimes the most effective strategy wasn't confrontation, but connection. He sent a brief, carefully worded email to the regional director, then closed his laptop. In the military, leadership often meant defending your people, not just on the battlefield, but in all aspects of life. His sons had faced real enemies with courage. They shouldn't have to face disrespect at home. Tomorrow would be about more than just embarrassing an arrogant salesman. It would be about honoring the values that the Wilson family had defended for 3 generations. The next morning dawned bright over Prestige Motors. Inside, Bradley was regaling colleagues with an exaggerated account of those 2 poverty cases from yesterday, mimicking James's limp to uproarious laughter. The sound of sirens cut a performance short. Staff and customers rushed to the windows as a procession unlike any they'd seen approach the dealership. First came two police motorcycles, lights flashing. Behind them, a black Suburban with government plates, followed by an official military vehicle flying a 4-star general's flag. Two more Suburbans completed the motorcade. "What the hell?" Bradley muttered, straightening his tie nervously. The vehicles stopped with military precision. Uniformed servicemen emerged from the escort vehicles, standing at attention. From the central car, Michael Wilson stepped out first, dressed exactly as he'd been the day before. Simple jeans and t-shirt. James followed, his limp visible but his posture impeccable. Then a collective gasp swept through the showroom as General Robert Wilson emerged in full dress uniform. Sunlight gleamed off rows of medals and decorations that chronicled a lifetime of distinguished service. His presence commanded attention without effort, the natural authority of someone who had led men into battle and brought them home again. Inside, the dealership manager frantically whispered to his staff, "That's General Wilson, 4-star, vice chairman of the Joint Chiefs. What is he doing here?" The glass doors parted as the Wilson family entered. The servicemen from the escort vehicles maintained their positions outside, creating an honor guard that transformed the luxury dealership entrance into something resembling a military ceremony. General Wilson walked directly to the reception desk, his sons flanking him. His voice carried across the suddenly silent showroom. "I understand one of your salespeople assisted my sons yesterday. Emily Torres, I believe." The receptionist, wide-eyed, fumbled with the intercom. "Miss Torres to the front desk, please." Immediately, Bradley stepped forward, a desperate smile plastered across his face. "Actually, sir, I was the one who—" The general turned slowly, fixing Bradley with the same gaze that had stared down foreign generals across negotiation tables. "No," he said quietly, "you were not." The single word, delivered without heat but with absolute certainty, caused Bradley to physically step backward. "I believe your security cameras will confirm exactly who assisted my sons and who mocked a Marine's combat injuries." The manager, now ashen-faced, nodded quickly. "I'll retrieve the footage immediately, General." The showroom remained frozen in uncomfortable silence as the manager returned from reviewing the security footage. His expression conveyed everything necessary. "General Wilson," he began, his voice strained, "I've reviewed yesterday's interactions. I deeply apologize for what occurred." He turned to Bradley. "Your behavior violated every standard of this company. You're terminated, effective immediately." Bradley's face drained of color. "But sir, I didn't know who—" "That's precisely the point," General Wilson interrupted, his voice measured yet powerful. "You judge my sons based on appearances, not character. If you treat any customer that way, regardless of who their father might be, you don't belong in the service profession." Bradley silently gathered his personal items from his desk as Emily Torres approached, looking confused until she recognized James and Michael. "Ms. Torres." The general extended his hand. "My sons told me how you treated them with dignity yesterday. How you saw them as people, not wallets." Emily shook his hand firmly. "Sir, they were respectful and knowledgeable. That deserves respect in return." The general nodded. "My son, James, explained you showed them the Midnight Blue model with potential adaptive modifications?" "Yes, sir. It can be customized extensively for drivers with various physical needs." "Excellent." The general turned to the manager. "I'd like to purchase that vehicle, fully loaded with every adaptive feature available." The manager nearly stumbled over himself reaching for the paperwork. "Of course, General. That would be approximately $1.2 million with the specialized modifications." "Make it $1.5 million, the general replied. "The additional funds will establish a discount program for disabled veterans purchasing vehicles with adaptive equipment." He signed the papers with military efficiency. "And ensure Ms. Torres receives a full commission." The manager nodded vigorously. "One more thing," the general added. "My friend Admiral Phillips is your regional director, correct? We served together in the Gulf. I've already spoken with him about implementing sensitivity training for your staff regarding customers with disabilities, particularly veterans. Around them, Other salespeople who had laughed the previous day now studied their shoes intently. James stepped forward. "The car isn't for us, in case anyone was wondering. It's for Marine Sergeant Thomas Reynolds, who lost both legs saving his unit. He'll be driving it in the Veterans Day parade next month." The general handed the keys to his sons. "Mission accomplished, gentlemen." As they prepared to leave, Emily Torres stepped forward again. "Sir, thank you for your son's service and for yours." The general smiled genuinely. "Thank you for seeing their worth when others didn't." They exited the showroom with the same dignity with which they had entered, leaving behind a profound lesson that had nothing to do with wealth and everything to do with character. The military motorcade pulled away from Prestige Motors, the gleaming midnight blue sports car, now following behind. Inside the dealership, the atmosphere had transformed entirely. The manager stood beside Emily, watching through the windows as the procession disappeared down the boulevard. "Ms. Torres," he said quietly, "effective immediately, you're promoted to senior sales director." The general's friend, Admiral Phillips, specifically requested it. Emily accepted with grace, but her thoughts weren't on the promotion. She was thinking about her brother who had returned from Iraq with invisible scars, how people had judged him without understanding his struggles or his strength. Throughout the showroom, conversations remained hushed. Bradley's desk stood empty, his nameplate already removed. Several staff members approached Emily to congratulate her, their expressions carrying hints of shame for their prior behavior. The wealthy couple who had exchanged knowing glances a day before requested to speak with Emily specifically about their purchase. "We serve too," the husband said quietly. "Never judge a book by its cover, right?" One young salesman approached the manager. "Sir, would it be possible to volunteer for the Veterans Discount Program the General established? My father was in Vietnam." Change rippled through the dealership. Not because a powerful man had flexed his influence, but because a principled man had demonstrated true leadership. He hadn't sought revenge. He had created something constructive from an injustice. The lesson wasn't just that the unassuming brothers had a powerful father. It was that dignity, respect, and character should be afforded to everyone, regardless of appearance, wealth, or station in life. Closing an audience engagement 100 words. Have you ever judged someone based on their appearance, only to discover how wrong you were? Or perhaps you've been on the receiving end of such judgment. This story reminds us that true worth isn't found in expensive clothes or luxury possessions, but in how we treat others, especially those who seem to have less power or status than ourselves. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful content. Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you rate this story from 1 to 10? Have you witnessed similar situations in your own life? Remember, respect costs nothing, but disrespect can cost everything.